She had dreams of love, freedom, and life on the open road. But those dreams ended in silence. One day she vanished. Days later, her lifeless body was found in the wilderness, strangled, alone, abandoned in the man she trusted the most. He came home, he stayed silent. Then he disappeared. What he left behind was a notebook, and inside it, a confession that will freeze your soul. This isn't just a murder story. It's a story of betrayal wearing the mask of love. Once you press play, you won't be able to stop, because what happened to Gabby Petito could happen to anyone. Don't skip this video. What you're about to witness isn't just a crime story. It is a haunting truth that will change how you see love, trust, and danger. Every second matters. Watch till the end, because the darkest part hasn't even begun. Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie seemed like a couple made for the road. Both were young, adventurous, and shared a passion for travel and storytelling. Hailing from Long Island, New York, their relationship blossomed from teenage familiarity into a committed partnership. Gabby, bubbly and bright, had dreams of building a travel blog and becoming a content creator. Brian, more reserved and artistic, had a deep connection with nature and minimalistic living. Their dream was to explore the American wilderness, living out of a van, documenting every step of their journey. In June 2021, they took the leap. With a white Ford Transit van converted into a tiny home on wheels, they set off on a cross-country road trip. The plan was to visit national parks across the western United States, live the so-called van life, and share their experiences on YouTube and Instagram. Their online persona painted a picture of freedom, love, and adventure. To the outside world, their relationship and lifestyle seemed ideal, some that many aspired to. But what unfolded in the months ahead revealed a stark contrast between social media perfection and real-life dysfunction. The cracks in their relationship, long hidden behind filters and hashtags, would eventually unravel into one of the most tragic and widely followed true crime cases in recent American history. Van life is more than just a hashtag. For many, it represents freedom from the rat racer life of minimalism, nature, and self-expression. For Gabby and Brian, the appeal was undeniable. Gabby had previously worked as a pharmacy technician, saving money for the trip. Brian had worked in a grocery store and spent time doing art and illustration. Together, they began converting a van into a makeshift home. The vehicle was equipped with a bed, small kitchen setup, storage space, and room for their essentials. They launched a YouTube channel called Nomadic Static, aiming to build a following by sharing their adventures on the road. Gabby, in particular, was excited about storytelling. She filmed and edited their first vlog, documenting their journey through forests, deserts, and small towns. Her dream was to become a travel influencer, someone who could inspire others to explore the world. Between Instagram snapshots of mountain sunsets and videos of camping under the stars, Gabby's social media presence quickly gained attention. Her soft voice, joyful demeanor, and artistic eye drew in viewers. She often appeared barefoot, laughing, or posing beside a waterfall. Brian usually stayed behind the camera or appeared less frequently. Still, the couple appeared deeply in love. As is often the case with social media, appearances were deceiving. Friends and family began noticing signs that the relationship was more complicated than it seemed. Brian had a history of controlling behavior, according to Gabby's close friends. He was said to be possessive and would get angry over small things, while Gabby tried to maintain peace, the stress of living together in a tiny van, navigating unfamiliar environments, and managing a social media presence began to take a toll. Gabby reportedly suffered from anxiety and struggled with panic attacks. She was sensitive, emotionally open, and deeply affected by conflict. Brian, on the other hand, seemed to shut down or become agitated under pressure. In messages and phone calls to her family, Gabby shared that things weren't always smooth. She said they argued often and that the journey, while exciting, was also emotionally taxing. Still, she tried to downplay the severity of the situation, assuring her parents that she was okay. She wanted the trip to work. She believed in the dream. Their trip officially began in June 2021. They left New York and made their way west through Kansas, Colorado, Utah, and eventually into Wyoming. Early Instagram posts show the couple hiking, exploring caves, and enjoying nature. In late July, they visited Monument Rocks in Kansas, then continued to Colorado Springs. Their photos from the Great Sand Dunes National Park show them smiling and barefoot in the dunes. From there, they visited Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon, and Arches National Park, some of the most breathtaking landscapes in the U.S. Gabby documented their travels extensively. She edited vlogs, captured time-lapses, and took photographs of their meals, campsites, and quiet moments under the stars. But even in these curated posts, hints of tension were visible. Observant viewers later pointed out how Brian often looked detached, while Gabby seemed overly cheerful, perhaps trying to compensate for something underneath. On August 12, 2021, in Moab, Utah, a 911 caller reported seeing a man slapping a woman near the Moonflower. That man was Brian, and the woman was Gabby. Police pulled the couple over in their van. The bodycam footage from that encounter would later become one of the most widely viewed and scrutinized videos in the case. In the footage, Gabby is visibly distressed, crying and struggling to explain what happened. She tells officers that she suffers from anxiety and that the couple had been fighting that morning. She blames herself for being mean to Brian. Brian appears calm, even joking with officers. Officers ultimately decide not to press charges. They separate the couple for the night. Gabby stays with the van, and Brian goes to a motel. That moment has been debated endlessly. Domestic violence experts have argued that Gabby showed clear signs of being in an abusive relationship. Her self-blame, emotional distress, and apologetic demeanor were red flags. Had the police intervened more decisively, perhaps arresting Brian or referring them to social services, the tragedy that followed might have been prevented. After the Moab incident, the couple continued their journey. They posted less frequently. Gabby's family noticed a shift in tone. In their final conversations, Gabby mentioned feeling overwhelmed. She was crying more, and Brian was growing more unpredictable. Gabby's last confirmed contact with her family was on August 25, 2021. She said they were headed to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. That would be the last time anyone heard her voice. Over the next few days, there were strange messages sent from Gabby as phone texts that her family believed didn't sound like her. One message read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails." Stan was Gabby's grandfather, but she never referred to him by his first name. That message raised serious concerns. After August 27th, there was total silence. On September 1st, 2021, Brian Laundrie returned to his family home in Northport, Florida. He arrived in the van, which now held critical evidence, and said nothing to anyone about Gabby's whereabouts. Gabby's parents were desperate. They tried calling Brian and his parents but received no response. Days passed. Finally, on September 11th, they reported Gabby as missing. By then, Brian had hired a lawyer. He refused to speak with police. His family refused to cooperate. The public and especially Gabby's family were outraged. What had happened between August 25th and September 1st? Why had Brian come back alone? And most importantly, where was Gabby? As news of Gabby's disappearance spread, social media exploded. TikTok users analyzed footage, followed timelines, and searched for clues. YouTube vloggers pored over the bodycam footage. Reddit threads speculated on Brian's behavior. People who had crossed paths with the couple during their trip came forward. One woman said she had given Brian a ride while he was hitchhiking in Wyoming on August 29th. He told her Gabby was back at the van, working on their social media. On September 17th, Brian was officially declared a person of interest in the case. But by then, he had disappeared too. What began as a dreamy young couple chasing adventure, freedom, and creativity had spiraled into a nightmare. Behind the Instagram filters and picturesque sunsets was a relationship slowly unraveling under the weight of control, emotional volatility, and suppressed fear. Gabby Petito's story, at this stage, was that of a bright spirit dimmed too soon. Her voice, once full of enthusiasm, had gone silent. The van that symbolized freedom became a moving prison. The young woman who inspired thousands was now the center of a search and rescue mission with growing urgency. Think you've heard it all? Not even close. Ahead lies Brian's final confession, the forensic twists, and a nationwide search that spiraled into chaos. Don't look away. The truth is buried deeper than you think. By mid-August 2021, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie had been on the road for nearly 2 months. Their Instagram pages were filled with captivating photos of mountains, rivers, and desert landscapes. But beneath the scenic beauty was a mounting storm, a conflict brewing quietly in the tight quarters of their van. Living in a confined space while constantly traveling tested their patience and emotional resilience. Gabby, who had dreams of becoming a full-time travel vlogger, was managing the pressure of editing, posting, and maintaining an engaging online presence. Brian, who leaned toward minimalism and solitude, was less interested in the performative aspect of van life. The very dream that had brought them together was beginning to pull them apart. Their relationship wasn't simply strained by the physical hardships of van life, was shaped by emotional patterns that many close to Gabby later identified as signs of control and manipulation. Gabby reportedly had a diagnosed anxiety disorder. She was sensitive, empathetic, and eager to please. Brian, by contrast, was often described as moody, temperamental, and controlling. Though their social media presence painted a balanced partnership, the truth was more complex. Gabby's family and friends would later recount episodes where Brian would isolate her from loved ones, belittle her choices, and subtly assert dominance in These behavioral patterns became more pronounced during the road trip. When the environment became unpredictable, new towns, unfamiliar roads, delays in content posting, or lack of sleep conflicts escalated quickly. Gabby's frequent apologetic tone in texts, her tendency to downplay problems, and her desire to make everything appear okay were signals that something was deeply wrong. On August 12, 2021, the couple arrived in Moab, Utah. It was supposed to be another stop in their journey across the West, but Moab would become a defining moment in the case, one that later drew intense national scrutiny. That day, the local police received a 911 call from a witness who reported a domestic incident near the Moonflower Coop, a small natural food store. The caller said he saw a man, later identified as Brian, slapping a woman, later confirmed as Gabby. The witness described the physical altercation and noted that the couple drove off in their white van. Minutes later, a Moab police officer located the van and initiated a traffic stop just outside town. What followed was captured on multiple body cameras and became one of the most watched and debated police interactions in recent history. The footage begins with Gabby visibly distraught, sitting in the front passenger seat of the van. She's crying, struggling to breathe normally, and appears shaken. Brian stands nearby, calm and relatively composed. The officer asks Gabby to step out of the vehicle and speak with him separately. Between sobs, she explains that she has anxiety, that they had been arguing, and that she had hit Brian during the altercation. She repeatedly blames herself for the situation, stating that she was stressed and that the blog and social media workload had overwhelmed her. Brian, in his interview with officers, downplays the situation. He smiles, jokes, and portrays the incident as nothing more than a small argument. He tells the officer that Gabby gets worked up sometimes and that she hit him with her phone. He doesn't express fear or concern, nor does he show anger. What's striking in the footage is the imbalance of emotional presentation. Gabby appears remorseful and broken, while Brian remains detached and After speaking with both parties and consulting with fellow officers, the Moab police determined that the incident did not meet the threshold for a domestic violence arrest. However, to de-escalate the situation, they decided to separate the couple for the night. Gabby was allowed to keep the van, while Brian was transported to a local motel. The officers advised the couple to take a break from each other and cool off. They assured both parties that this would be in their best interest. This decision, while legally justifiable under Utah statutes, became a subject of intense criticism later. Domestic violence experts argued that the signs were clear. Gabby exhibited symptoms of emotional trauma, self-blame, and fear. Police failed to see her as a potential victim of coercive control, a psychological form of abuse where the victim internalizes blame and appears as the aggressor. Many believe that had officers taken Gabby's emotional state more seriously or investigated further into the reported slapping by Brian, the outcome might have been different. The police report filed after the incident described Gabby as the primary aggressor, based on her admission of having hit Brian. However, the report also noted that she did not intend to harm him and that no serious physical injuries were observed. Interestingly, the initial 911 caller clearly stated that Brian had slapped Gabby, not the other way around. That statement was not addressed directly in the report or by officers during the stop. Critics pointed out that the officers appeared sympathetic toward Brian and may have misunderstood the dynamics of emotional abuse. Gabby's anxiety, tearfulness, and overwhelming need to take responsibility for the situation were, in hindsight, key red flags. Gabby and Brian reunited the next morning and continued their trip. There are few publicly known details about the immediate aftermath of that police encounter. No social media posts were made in the days following, and communication with Gabby's family began to dwindle. Her parents would later reveal that they sensed a shift in tone during this period. Gabby sounded increasingly distressed in phone calls. She confessed to feeling overwhelmed, to questioning the trip, and to being emotionally drained. Still, she remained hopeful. She wanted things to work. She believed that she and Brian just needed to get through the rough patch. She never gave any indication that she feared for her life. The Moab police stop is now widely considered one of the most pivotal missed opportunities in the entire case. Law enforcement professionals and advocates have since used the footage as a case study on how domestic violence doesn't always appear in the form of bruises or broken bones. Emotional manipulation, psychological stress, and behavioral conditioning can be equally damaging and far more difficult to detect in a brief encounter. Gabby's behavior matched many characteristics of a victim caught in an abusive cycle: excessive self-blame, emotional dysregulation, and a strong desire to protect the abuser's image. The officers, despite good intentions, were not trained adequately to recognize these patterns. Their focus was on diffusing the immediate situation rather than exploring the root causes of the conflict. The remainder of August saw Gabby and Brian pushing forward with their trip. They continued traveling west toward Wyoming, but they stopped posting regularly. It was as if the facade of their online life had begun to slip. Gabby's final Instagram post came on August 25th, showing her standing in front of a butterfly mural in Ogden, Utah. The caption read simply, "Happy Halloween." It seemed out of place and raised suspicions later on, with some questioning whether it had even been written by her. She also had a FaceTime call with her mother around that time, during which she seemed emotionally exhausted but not in immediate danger. By August 27th, all contact ceased. The next communication from Gabby's phone didn't feel right to her family. On August 27th, Gabby's mother received a text message that read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." Stan was Gabby's grandfather, but she never called him by his first name. Her mother was alarmed. The message didn't sound like Gabby. It was impersonal, almost robotic. It lacked the warmth and informal tone Gabby always used. This message would later become a key detail in the timeline, indicating that something had already happened or was about to. Between August 25th and August 29th, Little is known about what exactly happened between Gabby and Brian. Their van was later spotted at the Spread Creek, dispersed camping area near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. A family who had been camping nearby described seeing the van alone, and the door closing abruptly when they approached. Later, a YouTube video from another family traveling through the area captured footage of the van parked near a forest trail. That clip, shared online after Gabby's disappearance, became one of the most critical pieces of evidence in locating her. By the end of August, Brian was hitchhiking, seen by multiple witnesses without Gabby. When asked about his partner, he gave vague or inconsistent answers. She was found. He disappeared. But this story doesn't end with death. The final chapter reveals what Brian wrote before taking his own life, and how Gabby's legacy shook an entire nation. If you stop here, you'll miss everything that truly matters. The days following August 27, 2021, marked the beginning of a terrifying silence that no one close to Gabby Petito could understand. For her parents, this wasn't just a digital absence, it was a rupture in routine, a daughter's voice disappearing without explanation. As each hour passed without a call or text, concern turned into fear, and while the rest of the world continued unaware, a mystery was unfolding in the American wilderness, one that would grip the nation. August 25th was the last confirmed date Gabby Petito spoke with her mother via FaceTime. She said they were leaving Utah and heading to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. It was a short conversation, but Gabby had sounded tired. She had previously confided that she and Brian were fighting more frequently, and she appeared emotionally drained. On August 27th, Gabby's mother received a strange text message. "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." This message was immediately suspicious. Gabby never referred to her grandfather as Stan, and the wording felt cold, detached, and like her usual tone. After that, there were no more calls, no more photos, no check-ins, nothing. Around this time, a couple named Jen and Kyle Bethune, traveling across the country in their own van, happened to be recording their trip near Spread Creek dispersed camping area in Wyoming. As they passed through on August 27th, their dashcam captured a white Ford Transit van parked alone in the brush beside a dirt road. They didn't think much of it until days later when they saw news about a missing woman named Gabby Petito. Recognizing the van, they reviewed their footage and submitted it to authorities. That video became a breakthrough in the case. It gave investigators a precise location and timestamp, helping to narrow the search area significantly. What stood out in the footage was the van's stillness. The doors were shut, windows dark, no one was outside, no campfire, no activity, no signs of life. On September 1st, Brian Laundrie returned to Northport, Florida, in the van. He didn't notify Gabby's parents, he didn't call police. He didn't say a single word about where Gabby was or why he was back alone. He simply went home, parked the van, and resumed daily life as if nothing had happened. The van had been scrubbed and cleaned. Inside, investigators later found Gabby's belongings, her backpack, some clothes, and various items indicating she had still been with Brian near the end. But at the time, no one knew what was inside. What mattered most was this: Brian was home, Gabby was not, and he wouldn't speak. Gabby's family tried desperately to contact him. They called, messaged, emailed, but received no replies. Brian's parents also refused to engage. When Gabby's family asked where their daughter was, the Laundries remained silent. On September 11th, 2021, 10 days after Brian's return to Florida, Gabby's mother, Nicole Schmidt, filed a missing person report with Suffolk County Police in New York. The case was quickly transferred to the Northport Police Department in Florida. When investigators attempted to question Brian, his family referred them to an attorney. That alone raised suspicion. Gabby hadn't been reported missing yet when Brian returned. Why would he need a lawyer? Northport police expressed frustration publicly. They confirmed Brian was not cooperating. Social media erupted. Within hours, thousands of users were sharing Gabby's photos, reposting her last locations, and launching amateur investigations on TikTok and Reddit. What began as a missing person case became a viral manhunt. The case caught fire online like few ever had. Gabby was young, photogenic, and had an established social media presence. Her Instagram and YouTube vlogs gave the public a glimpse into her life, allowing strangers to connect with her story. She wasn't just a name or a statistic, she was a familiar face, smiling in front of mountain ranges and roasting marshmallows by the campfire. Twitter threads dissected Brian's behavior. Reddit users combed through van life videos and compared time. The footage from the Bethune's YouTube channel became especially critical. Viewers noticed small details: shoes under the van, the rear door slightly ajar. Public attention helped amplify pressure on law enforcement. What had begun as a grassroots effort soon turned into a full-blown media storm. By September 15th, Brian Laundrie was officially named a person of interest in Gabby's disappearance. The language was cautious. He wasn't yet charged with any crime, but the implication was clear. Police believed he knew more than he was saying. At the same time, the FBI joined the investigation. Search efforts intensified in Wyoming while authorities in Florida began surveillance of the Laundrie home. Reporters camped outside the house. Protesters held signs demanding answers. Despite the pressure, Brian remained hidden. His parents issued a short statement through their attorneys saying they hoped for Gabby's safe return, but refused interviews. Meanwhile, Gabby's parents went public with pleas for information. They held press conferences, spoke on national television, and begged Brian to speak. They described Gabby as kind, loving, and full of life, a daughter who called her mother almost every day, who loved nature but never would have gone silent willingly. Based on the Bethune's footage, investigators launched an extensive search in Grand Teton National Park and the surrounding Spread Creek area. The terrain was rugged, remote, cold at night, and difficult to traverse. Search teams included dogs, drones, and helicopters. Then, on September 19th, the FBI made a grim announcement. Human remains had been found near a dispersed camping area. The location matched the spot seen in the Bethune video. Though not officially confirmed at the time, authorities said the body matched Gabby Petito's description. The next day, the autopsy confirmed the identity. Gabby Petito was dead. The coroner later ruled that she had died from homicide by manual strangulation. She had likely been killed around the time of her last contact, possibly as early as August 27th. Just as the public's focus turned to justice, Brian Laundrie vanished. On September 17th, Brian's parents reported him missing. They claimed he had gone hiking in the Carlton Reserve, a 25,000-acre wilderness area near their home, 3 days earlier, and hadn't returned. This prompted another search, this time for the only known person of interest in a homicide case that had just shocked the world. Search teams spent weeks combing through swampy terrain, enduring heat, wildlife, and flooding. Dogs, drones, and ATVs were deployed, but no sign of Brian emerged. Rumors flew. Had he fled the country? Was he hiding in a bunker? Did his parents help him escape? Public opinion turned hostile toward the Laundrie family. Protesters gathered outside their house daily, chanting, banging pots, and demanding answers. Online theories exploded, ranging from the plausible to the bizarre. Some believed Brian was in Mexico. Others believed he had faked his death and escaped to South America. Meanwhile, Gabby's memorial grew. Across the country, people placed flowers, lit candles, and held vigils. In Florida and New York, murals and dedications sprung up in her honor. Gabby had become more than a victim. She became a symbol of how relationships can become dangerous behind closed doors, a symbol of how young women's voices often go unheard, a symbol of the limitations of law enforcement intervention, and a symbol of the internet's power to both illuminate and obsess. On September 19, 2021, after weeks of rising tension, unanswered questions, and frantic searching, the FBI confirmed the discovery of a body in Wyoming. Located near the Spread Creek dispersed camping area, it matched the description of Gabby Petito. Within 24 hours, an autopsy confirmed what millions had feared. Gabby Petito was no longer alive. The confirmation hit the nation like a punch to the chest. Gabby had become more than a missing person. She was now the face of a tragedy unfolding in real time, with millions watching, mourning, and demanding justice. Gabby's body was found in a remote area east of Grand Teton National Park. The exact coordinates were just 900 feet from where the Bethune family had recorded their YouTube footage of the couple's van. The van had appeared idle, with no one around. On August 27th, this detail would later coincide with the estimated time of Gabby's death. Her remains were located near a makeshift campsite. There were signs of disturbed soil, personal items, and other clues. The location was quiet, cold at night, and far from major trails. It was a place someone might hide, or abandon, or possibly return to alone. The FBI quickly cordoned off the site and began a detailed forensic sweep. Evidence bags were carried out, search dogs were deployed. Every rock, branch, and tire track was documented. For weeks afterward, this place would remain a crime scene under federal jurisdiction. On September 21st, the Teton County coroner confirmed that the remains were Gabby Petito's. Her cause of death was homicide by manual strangulation. The report also stated that her body had been exposed to the elements for 3 to 4 weeks, placing the likely date of death between August 27th and 29th. This timing was crucial. August 27th was the last known date Gabby communicated with her family. That same evening, a witness claimed to have seen a disturbance between Gabby and Brian at a restaurant called the Mary Piglets in Jackson Hole. The autopsy report was detailed but respectful. It mentioned blunt force injuries consistent with a struggle. Gabby had died violently and painfully. Her body had been left alone in the wilderness without care, without ceremony. One of the last known sightings of Gabby alive was on August 27th, around 1 p.m., at a Tex-Mex restaurant in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Witnesses reported that Brian had a heated confrontation with restaurant staff. Gabby, by contrast, appeared embarrassed, apologetic, and distressed. Nina Angelo and her boyfriend were at the restaurant at the time. They later told reporters that Gabby was crying, trying to smooth over the situation. While Brian grew increasingly aggressive and stormed in and out of the establishment, the couple left quickly after the incident, but the memory stayed with them. When Gabby was reported missing, Nina recognized her from the news and shared the encounter with authorities. This sighting placed the couple in Jackson Hole on the day Gabby likely died. It also showed a pattern: Brian escalating in public, Gabby retreating and apologizing. Once again, the dynamic between the two pointed to deeper emotional dysfunction. Further complicating the story were multiple reports of Brian being seen hitchhiking alone after August 27. Two separate witnesses described picking him up near Coulter Bay in Grand Teton National Park on August 29. One woman, Miranda Baker, posted on TikTok that she and her boyfriend had picked up Brian and given him a ride. She said Brian offered $200 for the ride, claimed his girlfriend was back at their campsite working on their social media, and acted oddly when they mentioned heading toward Jackson. He abruptly asked to be let out of the vehicle. This account, and others like it, reinforced a troubling narrative. Brian had likely killed Gabby and then wandered the park alone, trying to hitch rides, possibly plotting his return home. Back in Florida, the white van was seized by Northport police and handed over to the FBI. A forensic investigation uncovered multiple items belonging to Gabby: clothing, toiletries, digital devices, and personal effects, but more importantly, digital evidence was recovered. According to later FBI statements, the van contained a hard drive and other devices that showed clear evidence of Gabby's presence and abrupt absence. August 27th, investigators pieced together GPS data, phone logs, and deleted messages. These digital breadcrumbs helped map out Brian's route home and what likely happened in the days following Gabby's death. The van also revealed signs that it had been thoroughly cleaned. Blankets had been replaced, surfaces wiped down. There was no visible blood or biological material. It appeared Brian had methodically tried to erase all evidence of Gabby's death except for one critical piece he couldn't erase: the timeline. The confirmation of Gabby's death triggered an avalanche of public emotion. Candlelight vigils were held across the U.S. in Blue Point, New York, Gabby's hometown. Thousands gathered in silent mourning. Her face appeared on murals, billboards, and digital displays. She became a symbol of both lost innocence and the dark side of romanticized travel. Activists and survivors of domestic abuse shared their stories. Mental health organizations began pushing for better training in emotional abuse recognition. Law enforcement practices were called into question, particularly regarding the Moab police encounter weeks earlier. Social media played a dual role. While it helped spread awareness and connect dots, it also became a space for exploitation. Fake accounts, conspiracy theories, and even influencers tried to profit off the tragedy. Gabby's family, amid their grief, asked for respect and focus on justice. As investigators focused on the timeline of events, public pressure mounted on Brian Laundrie's parents, Chris and Roberta Laundrie. Critics accused them of shielding their son. Many believed they had helped him flee or had knowledge of Gabby's death and chose to remain silent. Their refusal to speak publicly only fueled speculation. On September 17th, the Laundries told police that Brian had gone missing. They said he had left home on September 13th for a hike in Carlton Reserve and never returned. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Gabby had disappeared. Brian had returned and vanished again, and now another search began. Carlton Reserve in Florida is a vast, swampy wilderness filled with alligators, snakes, and difficult terrain. Law enforcement spent weeks combing through 25,000 acres with no luck. Search teams used helicopters, drones, heat-sensing devices, and cadaver dogs. Still, Brian remained missing. Theories multiplied. Had he escaped into Mexico? Was he hiding in the Appalachian Trail, where he had previously hiked? Did he have help? Was he even alive? Internet sleuths and amateur detectives tracked possible sightings, analyzed satellite images, and even searched in nearby forests. None yielded results. For Gabby's family, the wait was excruciating. They had lost their daughter and, now the man who might hold the answers had disappeared without a trace. On September 23rd, a federal warrant was issued not for murder, but for bank fraud. The FBI alleged that Brian had used Gabby's debit card and PIN number without authorization, withdrawing over $1,000 between August 30th and September 1. This legal maneuver gave federal authorities more power to arrest Brian if and when he was found. It also confirmed something chilling. By August 30th, Gabby was already gone, and Brian was using her financial information to support himself. It was the clearest indicator yet that he had tried to cover his tracks and survive on the road after leaving her body behind. Before this video ends, remember, this isn't just about Gabby, it's about every silent cry, every ignored warning, every voice that was never heard. Watch till the last second, because justice isn't just what happened, it's what we choose to remember. When the Laundrie family reported Brian missing on September 17, 2021, law enforcement was stunned. Just days after Gabby Petito's body had been found in Wyoming, the only person of interest in the case had vanished again. The man who likely held the answers to the mystery surrounding her death was now at the center of a second manhunt, this time on Florida soil. What followed was a multi-week national search, filled with misinformation, public outrage, conspiracy theories, and unanswered questions. For weeks, America searched not only for a fugitive, but for justice. Chris and Roberta Laundrie told police that Brian had left home on September 13th, 2 days after Gabby had been reported missing. According to them, He had taken a backpack and said he was going hiking in the Carlton Reserve, a dense 25,000-acre wetland in Sarasota County, Florida. They claimed they had not seen him since, but the timeline was murky. Why did they wait for days to report him missing? Why wasn't law enforcement notified sooner? Did they help him disappear? These questions intensified the public's frustration. Many believed the Laundries had assisted in Brian's escape, or had at least given him a head start. Protesters camped outside their home, shouting through megaphones and demanding answers. The Carlton Reserve is a sprawling swamp known for its difficult terrain, dangerous wildlife, and lack of cell service. Despite the enormous effort involving drones, airboats, canine units, swamp buggies, and hundreds of searchers, there was no trace of Brian. Authorities drained water areas, searched sinkholes, and navigated thick brush. The reserve was closed to the public. Helicopters circled above Dale. Still there was no sign, no clothing, no footprints, no campsites. Some theorized that Brian had died in the swamp, possibly by suicide. Others believed he had never gone there at all, that the Carlton story was a decoy. Each passing day added pressure. The public wanted justice for Gabby. Her family wanted answers, and law enforcement wanted proof. Where was Brian Laundrie? As the manhunt intensified, the FBI alerted border control agencies and international law enforcement. Brian's passport was under scrutiny. Officials monitored airports, bus terminals, and seaports. A federal arrest warrant had been issued days earlier, accusing him of unauthorized use of Gabby's debit card, giving the FBI legal authority to arrest him if found. Tips poured in from across the country. Some claimed he was spotted in Alabama, others said the Appalachian Trail, and even Canada. A hiker in North Carolina believed he had encountered Brian on a remote trail. Dog the Bounty Hunter, a reality TV figure, joined the search and said he believed Brian was hiding in Florida. But none of these tips panned out. Each was either disproven or inconclusive. Brian had vanished. Behind the scenes, the FBI was building a digital case. While the public focused on the swamp, agents were collecting data from Brian's devices, Gabby's cloud backups, social media history, GPS logs, and surveillance footage from stores, gas stations, and rest stops along their route. They analyzed text messages, photos, and metadata to reconstruct the final weeks of Gabby's life. Data from the van's onboard computer system, Gabby's phone activity, and Brian's bank transactions helped shape a clearer timeline. By early October, investigators believed Brian had likely died shortly after his disappearance, but they could not confirm it. They kept searching, though quietly shifted focus from capture to recovery. The Gabby Petito case had already dominated global headlines, but Brian's disappearance took public interest to a new level. TikTok creators analyzed everything from drone footage to blurry images of campfires in the reserve. Reddit threads mapped out possible escape routes. YouTube sleuths published sightings and deep dived into Brian's art, writings, and social behavior. Unfortunately, misinformation spread quickly. Photos of men who resembled Brian went viral, sometimes putting innocent people in danger. Some claimed the Laundrie parents had built a bunker beneath their flat. Others alleged Brian had escaped by boat or had cosmetic surgery. It became clear that the search had evolved beyond a law enforcement operation. It had become a cultural moment, a case where true crime, media, and public obsession collided. On September 26, the public memorial service was held for Gabby Petito in Holbrook, New York. Hundreds attended, and thousands more watched online. Her father, Joseph Petito, gave a heartfelt eulogy, urging people to live their lives fully, just as Gabby had. Her family launched the Gabby Petito Foundation, dedicated to helping other families of missing persons and victims of domestic violence. Their mission was clear: make sure Gabby's death was not in vain. Gabby became a symbol not only of lost innocence, but also of overlooked domestic abuse. Advocacy groups called for stronger protective measures for young women, better law enforcement training, and more resources for emotional abuse victims. As law enforcement continued searching the reserve, they also monitored the Laundrie family closely. Their phones, movements, and conversations were likely under surveillance. Search warrants were executed on their home, van, and computer systems. The public demanded accountability. If the Laundries had knowingly misled law enforcement, could they face charges? Why had they retrieved Brian's car from the reserve days after he went missing but failed to inform police until later? Why had they waited so long to report his disappearance? Despite intense pressure, the Laundries refused to answer publicly. They communicated only through their attorney. In the absence of a murder charge, the bank fraud warrant gave the FBI room to act. Prosecutors continued gathering evidence quietly, knowing that without Brian alive, a trial might never happen. At the same time, Gabby's parents filed civil actions and considered legal routes to hold the Laundries accountable. Public calls for a grand jury investigation grew louder. The Petito family publicly accused the Laundries of obstruction and moral failure, claiming they knew more than they admitted. On October 20, 2021, after 5 weeks of searching, human remains were discovered in the Myockahatchee Creek Environmental Park adjacent to the Carlton Reserve. Nearby, search teams found a notebook, dry bag, and backpack belonging to Brian Laundrie. The remains were skeletal and partially submerged in water. The next day, the FBI confirmed through dental records that the remains were Brian Laundrie. He was dead. Investigators said the area had previously been underwater, explaining why the remains and personal items had not been found earlier. The water had since receded, revealing critical evidence. In January 2022, the FBI publicly stated that Brian Laundrie had written a confession in the recovered notebook, admitting to Gabby Petito's murder. According to the FBI's summary, Brian claimed that Gabby was injured and he had killed her out of mercy, a narrative widely rejected by experts in the Petito family. The confession appeared self-serving, but it provided legal closure. The notebook also contained writings about their relationship, his emotional state, and suicidal ideation. Authorities determined that Brian had died by suicide, likely within days of disappearing. With that, the criminal investigation effectively ended. Gabby Petito's life was cut short in a remote corner of Wyoming. Her story, a young woman full of promise, love, and wanderlust, standard at just 22. But in the wake of her death, a movement was born. One that reached far beyond a single tragedy. One that changed how we talk about missing persons, domestic violence, and the quiet signs of abuse that so often go unnoticed. In the months after the case closed, a family mourned, a nation reflected, and a conversation began, one that continues today. For Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's parents, life after her death was a haunting mix of pain, anger, and mission. They had watched their daughter grow from a curious, energetic child into a free-spirited young woman who wanted to capture the world through her camera. They had seen her smile in selfies, laugh with Brian, dream big about vlogging and living off, and then they had to bury her. There was no justice in court, no opportunity to face the man who had taken her life. Brian Laundrie was dead, his story, sealed by his own hand. But for Gabby's family, the story was not over. They had a purpose now, and it began with turning their pain into protection for others. In October 2021, the Gabby Petito Foundation was formally launched by her parents. Its mission: to support families of missing persons, raise awareness for domestic violence victims, and improve prevention resources for young people in vulnerable relationships. The foundation partnered with shelters, crises hotlines, and education programs. It began funding technology that helps locate missing individuals. It amplified national databases and encouraged federal action on what Gabby's family believed was a broken system. More importantly, it gave a voice to thousands of people, especially women who had suffered in silence. They weren't alone anymore. Gabby's family didn't stop with public awareness. In March 2022, they filed a civil lawsuit against Chris and Roberta Laundrie, Brian's parents. The suit accused the Laundries of intentional infliction of emotional distress, alleging that they knew Gabby was dead while refusing to respond to frantic calls and messages. In the lawsuit, Gabby's family stated that the Laundries' silence and refusal to assist with the search had prolonged their suffering. The legal battle lasted over a year before ending in a confidential settlement in 2023. Later, in November 2022, the Petito family filed another suit against the Moab Police Department in Utah, where Gabby and Brian had been stopped weeks before her death. They alleged that law enforcement had failed to recognize the signs of abuse and mishandled the incident. Despite a 911 call reporting Brian had struck Gabby, while no officers were criminally charged, the department acknowledged the case had revealed policy failures and gaps in officer training. The case became a nationwide example of how emotional abuse and coercive control are often invisible but deadly. Gabby's story wasn't just a headline, it changed laws. Following the intense media attention and public demand for change, several states revisited their domestic violence protocols. Training for law enforcement expanded to include psychological abuse, not just physical. Some states introduced Gabby alerts similar to Amber Alerts for adult missing persons under suspicious circumstances. The FBI and National Park Service also improved interagency coordination, after criticism emerged regarding delays in information sharing between jurisdictions in Gabby's case. But perhaps the biggest change was cultural. More people began speaking up. More women questioned relationships that made them feel small, afraid, or unheard. More friends and family learned to recognize the quiet signs of control, the self-blame, the isolation, the sudden disappearance from social circles. Gabby's name became a cautionary symbol, but also a call to action. The case also sparked important debates about media bias and whose stories get told. Critics pointed out that while Gabby's story received massive global attention, thousands of missing Indigenous and minority women received little to no coverage. This sparked the term missing white woman syndrome to trend, as journalists and advocates demanded more equitable reporting across racial and economic lines. Gabby's family supported that conversation. They used her platform to shine light on others. Her father repeatedly stated, "Gabby is helping bring home other people. If that's her legacy, I'll live with that." And she did. In the months following the coverage of Gabby's disappearance, over a dozen cold cases were reopened, solved, or brought back to the public spotlight, cases that may have otherwise remained forgotten. What we learned: Gabby Petito's story teaches us difficult, essential lessons. 1. Love can become dangerous when trust and respect erode. 2. Abuse is not always visible. It can sound like apologies, look like smiles, and feel like anxiety. 3. Silence protects no one. The Laundrie family's refusal to speak caused immeasurable pain. 4. Public awareness can save lives. When people care, share, and demand accountability, the system starts to listen. 5. Every life matters, regardless of age, gender, race, or social media presence. In Blue Point, New York, a small memorial bench sits in a quiet park. It bears Gabby's name and the words, "Greater than let it be the life you loved." Visitors leave flowers, photos, and handwritten notes. Her favorite song, lyrics, rocks painted with butterflies, quotes about travel, dreams, and freedom. Gabby was not a statistic. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a creator, a dreamer. She loved nature, poetry, and the color yellow. She laughed loudly. She cried when animals were hurt. She believed in second chances. And though her story ended too soon, it touched millions. In her memory, people now pay closer attention to signs of suffering. In her name, shelters receive more support. In her honor, young people are told that a healthy relationship should never make you feel afraid. There is no happy ending in a story like Gabby Petito, only a painful reminder of how fragile life is and how important it is to listen, to see, and to care. Brian Laundrie may have died with the truth still in his notebook, but the legacy he left behind was not silence. It was noise of grief, of protest, of reform, and Gabby's voice did not vanish. It multiplied. Through her family, through the people she unknowingly helped, and through every girl who decides to leave a dangerous situation before it's too late. As the sun sets over Grand Teton National Park, the wind whispers through the trees where Gabby once stood, barefoot in the grass, camera in hand. Somewhere between the sky and the soil, her spirit lingers not in tragedy, but in the bravery of her memory. Let her be more than a case. Let her be a compass, because for every Gabby, there are thousands more still searching for safety, still needing someone to believe them. And in telling a story, we believe them now.